Okay, hey Joel. Okay, I think we've started recording. So first of all, quick reminder that InterMine has a code of conduct. So generally that means treat one another with the respect that you would like to be treated with. And if at any point you do witness or experience anything that you think maybe violates the code of conduct, you can read, it takes a couple of minutes to read, it's not too long. Then you can report those issues either to myself, or if it's something that I've done, then you can also report it to Daniela. Both of our email addresses are in the agenda, but we say this just in case we've not had any issues recently, and it's not that we're worried about anything in specific. And without that, I will move on to the actual call. So I think the first thing that we're going to discuss is the upcoming release plans, and I think that's over to you, Daniela. You're muted. I can unmute you if that helps. I've clicked unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so do you want to share the screen of the link that I put? So what we...
You should be able to share if you try.
No, because at the moment I don't know, but I cannot.
I've just enabled it.
Just a second, just a second. Okay, so I put here the upcoming release of plans. This is a page in our documentation where I try to keep updated the upcoming releases for InterMine. This is now very detailed page, and as you can see, we have a plan, a 4.20 release for spring of 2020, and a 4 release of the 4.3 in fall. But if you want to have more information, you can go in the Intermap roadmap. This is the last link. And this will bring to GitHub, where we have created this roadmap and release planning project, where you can see all the tickets, all the improvement that we are going to release in the upcoming release. For example, you can see that in June, I didn't specify the date, but actually we wanted to do for the beginning of the next week, we are going to release InterMine 4.20, and all the stuff released with InterMine 4.20 will be listed here. Mainly what we are going to release are a lot of new web services and improvement of the existing web services to support BlueJeans. Then we are going to release a couple of bug fixes related to data type and UniProt loader task that we discover when we build the CovidMine, and a couple bunch of things related to FAIR, mainly bioschema markups. And as always, I would like to thank our contributor, Ashish, Ahmed, and Sam that contributed to this release. So this will be is not a disruptive release, and will be released at the beginning of the next week. But you will receive an email, a blog, and a tweet as usual. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniela. You caught me whilst I was just scrolling up to look at the attendee list, and now I've got to find the right place on there. Right, okay, so the other thing that I think probably is the reason many people are here that we were going to talk about today was federation and managing multiple mines. So I've put down a few points related to things that exist, and then I'd like to just open the floor to let people share thoughts that they have. So one note is that we started to create a single sign-on project last year during Google Summer of Code. And the aim of that, I think originally we'd been thinking about having it just be that a single person, there would be a single instance where you could have like an InterMine account, and then you could use your InterMine account to log in to InterMines in the same way that you could use Google to log into many different services. I think recently we also floated the idea that maybe certain people who maintain multiple mines might prefer to maintain their own server for this. I don't know if that sounds any better. Like, for example, if the legume mines might maintain an InterMine logon server that would allow you to log in with your InterMine legume logon. But those are just a couple of possibilities or ideas. I think there's a little bit more work that maybe needs to be done on this. Is that right, Daniela?
Yeah, just a bit, not too much. I think that a bit of work has to be done to integrate with BlueJeans, because at the moment, when we build the InterMine server, we were looking at the old interface, and but for BlueJeans, it requires a bit of more work, and that in any case has to be done also to give the possibility to log into Google using BlueJeans. That is not being implemented yet. So actually it's an effort that combine both Google login and eventually any external or auth server.
Okay, does that mean it already works well for the JSP interface?
I tested deeply, and I can see that it works pretty well. I remember there were still some improvement that could be done, implemented in the auth server interface, just to improve the interface. But there are all the main functionality, and also we implemented the feature which allow to the first time that you log in to migrate your user, which is currently stored in the InterMine repo, migrate the information to the auth2 server. So also this part has been done. So I think that, of course, is now ready to production. It requires a bit more effort, but it's in a very good status. And everything is documented, and I'm pretty sure that if we need any help, if we need some help in clarification or some help in fixing some bugs, I'm pretty sure that Rahul, who is the student has worked on the project, can help us.
Fantastic. I've put a link to that GitHub repository as well in the agenda, just if anyone wants to take a look at that. I'm pretty sure it was the InterMine authorization server project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Right, I found the right one.
Yeah, sorry that I didn't put the link. Yeah, I could have done. Yeah.
I could have as well, but I just thought about it right now. Okay, so I'll just list some of the other things and then I'll open the floor. But we do have the cross InterMine search. We did demo that in 2018. I think it probably needs some performance improvements in Firefox, but that is definitely something that can be useful if you maintain multiple instances of InterMine to search across all of them at once rather than just the one. And I do believe it works fine in Chrome, and it's just Firefox that's a little bit hairy. And then I had a couple of ideas that aren't already concrete things that exist. So what did I write here? I should remember this. One BlueJeans, many mines. Yeah, so right now BlueJeans supports mine switching. And I think some people, I'm guessing, you might like to see things like allowing a mine admin to set just a single neighborhood for the registry. So I sort of imagine if you maintain 2 or 3 different intermines, you might just want to say, I only want to show the bean mines or the mod intermines or something like that. Or that you might even want a custom curated set of URLs rather than just pulling from the registry. I'm seeing maybe a nod there. Okay. But I would definitely love to hear opinions and thoughts on that and what you think would be useful in terms of if BlueJeans becomes the new or primary interface for InterMine, how you imagine it would work, especially across multiple intermines. But again, that is just dealing with multiple intermines rather than actually federating anything. So then my final point would be for genuine federation, given the fact that we have disparate models, what would you like to see or what thoughts you had at this point? And one thing that I think would be nice would be to update the client libraries and say rather than just querying flymine, query flymine and mousemine. or maybe query a given neighborhood. But I'd love to hear some thoughts from other people.
Okay, well, I'll oblige you and just sort of think out loud a bit. I mean, we started down the, well, we probably didn't have a very good reason for having multiple mines in the first place. You know, we had a project that was supposed to be all about federation, and Christown was, well, I guess we had Medicago or MedicMine as a kind of separate instance already, and so that kind of pushed us towards thinking about maintaining different mines for not exactly individual species in our case, but maybe genus level mines. And you know, we also have kind of an integrative mine that mostly just contains genomic data, but the individual genus level mines contain sort of more detailed information about genetics and things like that. So our first foray into sort of multi-mine types of queries was based on Vivek's work, which was just using the keyword kind of searches and spreading that across however many mines we had registered into it, and you know, sort of thinking about ranking the results according to, I guess, basically how InterMine itself was ranking them. More recently, so Sven kind of worked on taking that, which had initially been implemented in Drupal, and moving that over to a Django-based, Django CMS-based context. But as part of that, then we started thinking about, well, what are the other sorts of things like that we could do? And we, for example, said, well, you know, each of our mines may have template queries, and some of those templates may just happen to work in other mines. And wouldn't it be interesting to just see, like, oh, well, somebody thought to define this templated query over here in Peanut Mine, maybe it would also work in Bean Mine. And that's, you know, it works fairly well. You don't always get results that make sense, but you know, I guess one issue that we've run into is in terms of lists. You know, so some of the template queries allow you to specify things in terms of list membership. You know, so if you do that in terms of a particular mine, it really doesn't make sense in terms of the other mines at this point. So I don't know, Sven, do you have any other things that you remember from that work? We haven't really touched it for a while, so.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that since last time, but I remember there can be some unexpected results that kind of make sense and kind of don't. If you're looking at a mine other than the mine that the template or list was built for.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, in general, our approach was just sort of brute force in terms of, well, most of the mines have at least fairly similar models. So if you define a query against one mine, it'll probably work against the others. And then you'll get things that you can aggregate together into result lists, and maybe they'll be interesting.
So I definitely thought that, and so one of our original early thinkings on this was kind of taking the templates from a different direction, which was to say that even if you have different models, you can still define the functionally the same template in different intermines using the local model. And then that's a kind of equalizer, because the template then acts as a kind of a buffer. It says, here's what you're going to get, and it doesn't matter what your model is, you'll still get the same data. So you can do that kind of thing across multiple mines. And maybe that's exactly what you were saying, but I think you were coming at it from the, here's the query, we can run the query across multiple mines, whereas you can actually make an effort to make the functionally the same template in different intermines, even though they have the different models.
I see. So something that sort of had the same slots and the same name, but it translated into a different query.
Exactly. So you kind of get the same columns back. The column header names might not be the same, but the data comes back the same. But But
Yeah.
it's interesting you tried that.
I could imagine doing something like that if you if you knew you had a set of mines that you wanted to integrate and you knew about each of their models and you sort of intentionally created the.
It would be sort of like a instance versus implementation issue from regular programming.
I guess you could think of it as sort of as an encapsulation. So you say the bit that the bit that matters is the template. How you deal with it behind the scenes is your local business. But of course, it does then put a bottleneck in the type of federation that you could do across multiple mines. But if you knew that there were kind of certain types of basic functionality that everybody might reasonably be able to instantiate very quickly, it would give you a way of sort of smoothing over the cracks of different ways of modeling things. Hey, Joe.
Raising my hand. I just wanted to say that we're kind of hitting a wall in the phytomine, that we have, 200 and something organisms in it right now, and we're expecting to start adding in, we have a bolus of about 80 different individuals coming in, and we're at a point where we can't load fast enough. So we have to go to some sort of multi-tenancy model where we have individual mines for individual organisms, and hope that will carry us for a while. But we're really, we're not even. It's a combination. It takes too long to load. We're running out of integer IDs. So we have to rethink how we structure things.
So I remember you were the first one to run out of integer IDs, which is pretty impressive feat.
Yeah.
But you see, in a model where you have control over the model and you want to have multiple different intermines, which essentially are all owned by you, a model where you have common templates, actually for you might work then quite well, because all your different organisms are in sync. And now you have an interface that knows that it's talking to a bunch of databases that are identical. So in fact, you can go beyond a template as being the unifying feature. You can literally run the same queries across all of those databases and pull back the same. So you don't actually need the template you can think of a template as being a contract between the user and the database, or the integrator and the database. So that's a way of normalizing things. But in your case, you wouldn't need to do that. So I think I'm really interested to hear how you would get on by doing what might be the least painful thing, which is having one mine per genus or group of related species.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we don't quite have figured out is, well, what are the things, a lot of the information is cross-species, the homolog data, the protein families, these things that necessarily involve multiple organisms.
And so then you have an all versus all problem there, but you could perhaps deal with that by having one mine that's the monster mine of the relationships specifically to mediate the cross-species things.
Right. I mean, there would be just a homolog mine and a protein family mine or something like that. We'll have to.
So I got kicked off for some reason, probably my internet, so I missed something, but it sounded from what Joe was saying like it was very relevant to something Sam was trying to do, which was basically re-implement the friendly mine functionality so that instead of using kind of explicit declarations of homology, we were using the fact that we assign all of our genes to common gene families. And then you could, in principle, it seemed like you could basically say, well, I'm dealing with a gene that belongs to this gene family. Do you have genes that belong to this gene family? And get the links that way. But from what I understood, he told me that it's not really implemented in a way that you can kind of redefine the query that it makes in order to establish those friendly mines, that it really depends on using homology. So that might be something for further conversation when he's able to join us.
And as another wrinkle, we want to have the ability to say, that people can come in and those that are only interested in a particular subset of our data could be viewing a mine or mines that only include that subset. So anyone that's interested in our Raccopodia and nothing else.
So if you had if you had an interface that was able to distribute a query across multiple InterMines and then get an answer back, what you're then and collate the results from that, what you're saying is you need an extra twist on that, which is to say, I want to be able to only talk to this group of InterMines.
Exactly, exactly. I'm working on that on BioMart right now, and that's always fun. Some code does not age well.
Oops.
One thing that this is making me wonder is, so the notion of multiple mines, being, taking a federated approach, or, this loosely coupled one, asking the same query at each mine and collating the results. That's kind of user or developer level concepts. But I wonder if you push that, the parallelization down into maybe the idea of a partitioned mine. So it's still, from the developer standpoint, it's still a single mine, but underneath the implementation is able to partition either horizontally or vertically. Like, in our case, we only have one mouse mine, but it would be really great if I could build the whole, genome assembly side of things once and hardly ever changes. And, so a sort of a vertical partition, and then rebuild the things that change all the time on a more frequent basis. And then, at the end, it's still a single mine with a single model.
You should talk to Sergio, because this is what we used to do in the Modern Code project, is you build the data that are invariant, that don't change very fast, and you snapshot it, put it to one side, and then when the changing data comes in, you take the one you've built before and add to that.
Right. We actually do that too. That's kind of that wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's similar idea, but I was thinking of partitioning, or, like sharding in the indexing world, where, underneath the covers, the system takes care of splitting across, either vertically or horizontally there.
I've taken a little look at Citus for sharding, going towards like a multi-tenancy model where you can define some sort of sharding parameter and just transparently it distributes across backends. So that might be something you should
I didn't get the name. It was
Citus, C-I-T-U-S.
Okay.
I think I found it. I'll put a link in the notes. What were your findings?
Microsoft company now, not that should influence anything.
They've gotten a lot better with their open source,
Yes.
actually.
Ever since they took over GitHub.
Well, as long as they don't Skypeify GitHub, meaning Skype used to really work nicely.
I agree.
So what were your findings with Citus, Joe?
Well, I had sort of installed it on my desktop to play around with right before the shutdown, and it was good for being able to do distributed queries. You can define a sharding parameter, and it just distributes things transparently. I tried to move it onto one of our database servers, but apparently there was some conflict between Citus and what we were running, Scientific Linux, which is some variant out of Fermilab of Red Hat. And I could just never get that to work. So I was unable to test it at scale. But I hope to be, talking people into just loading a standard Ubuntu on the database server, trying it out again.
So doesn't Postgres itself support some notion of partitioning?
Yeah, now I've had trouble trying to get that to work though. And I've forgotten it's, maybe it's just because I was running some older versions when I was trying it out. I've forgotten some of the details, I'm sorry.
If you're trying to say something, you're muted.
And I just was smiling and laughing along, so it was support, but not strongly verbal. I think I might have also been talking while I was typing, so I said with the Postgres may bear further investigation. Yeah, I probably look like I'm not alone when I'm alone because I'm just talking to myself all the time.
Well, I mean, I know there have been various efforts to think about other backends besides Postgres, so maybe thinking about something that would be cross-platform is better.
Yeah, it's a shame we never got any viable applicants for the Mongo project that Sam was hoping to mentor for the last couple of years. Maybe even 3. Oh, God. Okay, I just wonder, Jacqueline, I don't know if you need to drop off, but whether you had any, and you have a user's perspective, if you had any thoughts or feelings about this that might be different from our more nerdy perspectives.
No, I mean, yeah, I have to leave. I have another meeting to prepare for. 3 meetings today in a row. I think the one thing, especially just for me, is some things that Andrew's already brought up is that I have to log in to every single one of our legume mines when I want to use it. Honestly, it's the same username and same password for every single one. I wish I could just log in once and it'd be done. Like I mentioned to you when we were at PEG, you know, why not like an ORCID ID or something or anything to make it easier for me.
Well, so I know that CovidMine has the Google sign-in implemented because I used it recently. So presumably that's something that already exists. I mean, I don't know whether it is exactly like single sign-on, but it's pretty close.
Well, and I implemented a kind of crude workaround to do single sign-on in my federation work, but I don't know if that's ready for end users.
I would be happy to test it for you.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was sort of in terms of getting API tokens and using those, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Could somebody from Cambridge be speaking up about this? Because I know there has been work on single sign-on happening behind the scenes, hasn't there? Or
no, at the moment with Google, you need every time to log in, and you can use your Google login, but you need to log in every time. If we use our own InterMine server, this will allow you to log in once. Of course, you have to authenticate all the application as you do now when you want to use your Google account. The first time you need to give the permission. But once that you are logged in, you automatically log in all the web app that you open. So at the moment, it doesn't work in this way with Google. But if we use the InterMine auto server, this was the idea, you log in once and you are logged automatically to all the mines instances.
And what would be involved in us? Obviously, if it was easy, you'd have done it by now.
No, but the problem is that if we have a centralized authorization point, it might be very dangerous because it might be a potential bottleneck. So do we want to be in charge of the authentication of all the users for all the mines? So for this reason, I didn't put in production. So we might think maybe to have a several InterMine auto server, maybe one for plants, one for animal, one for just a split.
The other thing that I suppose you could consider as a fix is that, I don't know, maybe this is too obvious a suggestion, but I have a former student who now works for Google on security, and he said to me, just use LastPass. And so if you use LastPass to remember all your credentials, then usually it'll fill out the form for you. You just need to click OK. So it's still tedious, but you don't actually have to do any typing.
What's LastPass?
Ah, okay, you should get LastPass. So it's the thing that means you only have to remember, it's the last time you have to remember a password, LastPass.
Okay.
And so you do need to remember a passphrase and write it down very carefully somewhere, because if you lose that, you're stuffed. But after that, it remembers all your passwords for you.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like KeyPass or MacPass, where you store all your.
Something like that. And so if you're already using something like that, I don't know. So LastPass, I think, is engineered quite well. So if you look into it, which I did transiently when I signed up, it's quite clever about how it, see you, Joe. Nice to see you again. It's quite sensible about where it stores passwords and where it stores the salts and how it does it, so that it's quite a good implementation of a password manager, and it works pretty nicely. I use it for everything, and now I have a sort of sensible passwords for everything I use, just about. And then it means, because it fills things out, it makes it easier. But presumably you may be already using something like that, and it's still tedious.
Yeah, because like I have my personal laptop I use for work, and then I have my desktop at the office, but I'm not the office. And so I need like the password manager to be available at both these computers. So I kind of just rigged the encrypted password keyboard or password database to be on my Dropbox so that I could access it from both, because if I change one, then I gotta change another if I had two separate ones.
Got it.
So does LastPass kind of work?
Yeah, I think they'll let you do either two machines or your laptop and a phone, and after that you have to pay.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they've probably got me to the point now where I would pay, except that I don't trust my phone, so I don't use it on my phone.
Yeah, I'll look into it. But yeah, it's just I work with multiple species. Well, lately I've just been working on Peanut, but with working with multiple species, I would go back and forth, and like I would save a template, and I would, using the friendly mind links, I would just go from one species to another, and I'd be like, okay, why isn't this template showing up on this new mine I'm on? I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to log in. So I have to go all the way back, lose my spot, log in, and then go back.
But maybe Jacqueline, you can use Google, so log in with Google, so at least you have only one user, at least.
Yeah.
you have to log in always, but at least you have only one user, one password, if this can help. It's of course also because configure the mine to work with Google is a very few steps.
Yeah, and this would be something like that. If there isn't a good workaround, like an easy single on, like if there could be just some sort of documentation for a non-computer scientist to follow about how to do something like that, that would be great. Because I'm in a Zoom meeting with lots of smart people. I'm the biologist who looks at the data and goes, "Give me the data," and I write a little bit of Bash and Perl code, and a little bit dabbled in PHP and Python, but most of this, everything else you guys are talking about, over my head. So it's one of those things, like if what I can understand and use, I would be really happy to use, and that's one of the reasons why I like InterMine, because the interface is really easy to follow.
That's really fabulous to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is easy to follow. The templates did take a while to figure out in the query, but once you figured that out, it was really easy. It's like R. The learning curve was a little painful, but then once you get over that curve, it was like, yay! So, I mean, I like, if I need to get a sequence, if I need to download something, like I need these 5 sequences, InterMine the whole way. I'm like, oh, there we go, done, piece of cake.
I wish we were recording this. Oh, we are.
Yeah, you are. But it is really useful. I think it's a really, really great tool. I mean, I really do like it. I've been talking to Yo a lot about like different things I like about it, and you're more than welcome to use me as a beta tester. Because I like messing with it. Right now, just because of what my research is currently focusing on, I've just been using CovidMine. I haven't been using going back and forth and using a lot of the other mines. But I mean, I still use them a lot.
That's really good to hear. Have you played at all with the BlueJeans interface?
I have not. I haven't been on InterMine for about 2 weeks now. I've been kind of busy with other various things I have to finish.
Well, you might enjoy that in the sense that it'll look very familiar, but it might be smoother and better and nicer.
Okay, yeah.
I just like to add that the BlueJeans might help with the single sign-in. So I haven't looked into Google single sign-in, but since BlueJeans is just one URL, one website, and use the mine switcher to hop between mines, maybe it will be possible to just log in once, and it will log into all the mines that are compatible. So currently, if you log into a mine using your credentials and then switch to a different mine with the mine switcher, and then log in there, you can jump between those two mines and it will remember your credentials. So maybe that will help with the current situation.
Sounds great.
So are you saying you sort of log into the mines you're interested in up front and it just remembers those for you?
Yeah, so the mine switcher lets you switch to any registry mine. And if you log into it, it will just keep a session for that mine and you can switch to a different mine and it won't delete it. So you can just jump back and it will remember you were logged in. So that's how it works currently. And with the single sign-in, maybe we could eliminate the logging into each mine and you just log in once.
I would definitely encourage you, Jacqueline, to check out BlueJeans because I think it's the way of the future.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the feedback will be great since you're very deep into since you really like the JSP interface. It will be great if you find anything missing in the BlueJeans.
Yeah, so it was easier. It was very laid out, and it was always the same interface between different gene models I was going to, and if something was missing, but it was in the same order. That was like the most important thing for me, because then if I knew if this gene didn't have it, and like if it did or did not have it, it would be right there. I'm like, okay, it's not there, which means okay, it's not. There's various things that we have on our legume mines, and so it was just a case of having it there in that order and knowing, like, really quickly looking at it and glancing at that gene page. Okay, there's the data I need. Go ahead and figure it out, download that, and go from there. But I really got to go to my next meeting. I'm prepared for my next meeting. So thank you for the invite, Yo. And thanks for all your InterMine work. Again, beta test me like no other. I have no problems.
That's
amazing.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming and have a nice meeting.
Yep, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, one thing I would just like to take from what Jacqueline said, she said that when she's using multiple intermines, it's really annoying when she has to find a template that she doesn't have anymore or lists that she doesn't have anymore. So that's something we need to be aware of if we treat sharding intermine instances into separate, like saying, oh, well, now that rather than having this mine, I'm having two separate mines. And did we lose Joe? We did lose Joe. That's a shame. Yeah. Because I think that would be something that he would be benefit from hearing, just to remember that users might expect their stuff to follow them. And at the minute, at least, that won't happen. So if you make a list in Peanut Mine, it's not going to be in Chickpea Mine, but you might like it to be. So we need to think about that, I think. But I've written that down so we won't forget.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other thoughts at the minute just about Federation, or should we move on to further things?
I mean, I guess one thing I would say is that in some of our work that's not directly related to InterMine, we find that the more attention you can give to actually, not just pulling in the results, but doing something interesting that's integrative with them, the cooler Federation becomes. And so, I mean, it's a big challenge to define exactly what those things might be, but I think that would be a really interesting thing to explore together.
So I really agree with you. I don't know if you ever saw, or if it's even still up, the original intermod .org InterMine, and so that collated across multiple model organism databases and allowed you to collate. It was quite a nice sort of first pass demo in terms of pulling together functional annotation or gene expression annotation across multiple mods. Yo has popped up the link, so I don't know if it's up. It'd be interesting to see if it is.
I don't know how much of it works, but it is oh yeah, no known orthologs for every single gene. There's something wrong there.
It definitely could. You could blow it up very easily, but it was a sort of not a very well thought out but first pass attempt at doing things across multiple minds. And if you're interested in exploring the types of things that one could and should be doing, that's definitely is something that we're having the more brain power the better on this. So I don't know, ADH5 apparently.
At a guess, Goss, it could just be that every single mine has migrated to HTTPS.
That's probably what it is. But reading down the side here, it had, I mean, I can show you if you haven't looked, well, people probably see it themselves, but there's an ortholog summary, an interactive heat map, an ontology diagram, enrichment. And so you could, it was an exploration of things that you could do relatively painfully, done in quite a nicely colorful way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe that's a subject for a separate conversation, which I think, I guess is of interest to the Legume Federation and also perhaps to CovidMine.
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. I'm gonna park that conversation here just so we can run through some of our other things. But I think we've had some interesting points raised and thinking points for further development and so on. So let me see. We have CovidMine. So you may have seen our announcement blog go out, but Daniela, Sergio, and Kevin primarily have been doing a lot of amazing work just to pull in COVID data. So that includes, as well as the genomic data, it also has the distributions and illnesses and recoveries and deaths. I don't know if you want to add a bit more than that, Danny?
No, I think.
Cool. Okay, well, anyway, they did some fantastic work pulling this together. And this is one place where we are trying to use blue genes as the primary interface for this experimentally, just to see how people get on, and we hopefully might get some bug reports or use reports through that way. And I
think the nicest thing was that in a few weeks we were able to publish a new instance, and I think this is the real power of InterMine. Yeah.
Just to add, I plan to redeploy blue genes next week, new version, like months of fixes and new features, as well as a visualization to CovidMine. So if you want to check it out next week instead of.
I didn't catch that. What did you say that you?
So next week we plan to release a new version of InterMine and blue genes. So that's months of fixes and updates to the interface, as well as a visualization for the cases, CovidMine cases.
Nice.
So that reminds me, we had a little bit of discussion about the sort of geographical display potential. Is that something we're thinking of still pursuing, or you had mentioned an intern, who might be a good candidate for. So
I believe the answer to that is yes. Kevin is actually mentoring Sakshi. I don't know if you, have we put this on our backlog? Or is...
No, I don't think she's aware of it. But
we should get her.
This is the WASP map. Like, could you mention a part of the URL? Just I'm sure I'm thinking of the right thing.
You mean Andrew?
Yeah. Or if you also know it. Like the name of the map itself. Because it was an Angular app, wasn't it, that you had created? Or am I mixing it with something else?
Ours was an Angular application that used Leaflet.js to basically just display, germplasm for us, legume germplasm throughout the world. Let's just put it in the.
So you want a visualization that's similar then, just for blue jeans?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting to have something, that could display information that got pulled in from a query in Blue Jeans into a geographic context. We haven't actually loaded any of our geographic information into the mines yet, but that would motivate us to do so.
Yeah, I think the CovidMine was the first case where we have the distribution, the case distribution that is a geographical distribution. So I think it's the first time that we define latitude and longitude, because I don't think that there are other mines at the moment that they use this attribute. But we thought about, provide a map which show, the distribution over the world,
I think Sakshi will be excited to start on it, considering she has time, but it seems she's working very fast with the existing plans, so maybe.
Okay, well, just keep us in mind if you're interested in talking about it further.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, that's really good. Actually, we will definitely try and loop you in when Sakshi gets closer to being free for the map visualization. I think I'd also make CovidMine better to actually see it in the visual mappy way. I'm very eloquent today, as you see. Okay, what else? Oh, well, that segues very neatly onto our interns, actually. We have one here today. Hey, John. So we have 5 interns. Their projects, no, we actually have more than that. We have 5 Outreachy interns, and then we have a couple of in-house interns who would have been physically with us had there not been an interesting pandemic on the way. So that includes upgrading our R clients. So I know that some of you may have been using or looking at our R client, but it's missing some features. So they're going to try and work a bit more on that and see if we can also get the code generation to work so that R is actually in IM tables as well. We have someone working on the InterMine data browser, which was originally a Summer of Code 2018 project, but we're upgrading that and making it a bit more modern and I think adding some features that were missing. There's InterMine, the command line project. Could you talk a little bit about that, Kevin? Just a sentence or two?
I wasn't prepared for that, but I'll try and get it into my thoughts. So it's related with InterMine Cloud, which is to start mines without having to have any sysadmin knowledge by using, I guess, GCP or AWS. I'm not sure what we'll go for. Using a web interface to start the mine, upload the data. And we also want to make it possible to start this locally without depending on a public mine. So without depending on a public cloud service. So if you want it on your own servers, you could use the CLI, which will start the interface for you, and then you do the same thing using the web interface. And you will use Docker containers locally to start it and configure it. And it's also pretty useful in a CI use case, because I've found it very annoying that you have to get all the dependencies for building an InterMine, Postgres, and Solar if you want to do keyword searches. And it's a lot of work when you just want to run the integration tests in CI on Travis, and Travis sometimes can't handle it. So now we're using InterMine Boots, which is the name of the CLI tool, to start all the Docker containers needed to run an InterMine instance, and it will just build it. And it seems very reliable for some reason on Travis. Maybe they like running things in Docker containers instead of just one machine.
Oh,
So
thank you.
That sums it up.
That sounds great. I mean, I think would you say I'm right in saying that it makes deploying InterMine a lot easier?
Yeah, it should. That's its goal. And especially, I think it makes CI a lot easier as well, and testing.
Amazing. We already mentioned that we have the data viz intern with the geographical use case. We also have someone who's working on creating some videos for the InterMine training portal and also reviewing our Python tutorials. And actually Asher is helping to co-mentor on the training portal one. And you're on another one as well, aren't you, Asher? I can't remember which right now.
The JavaScript data visualization.
Thank you so much for your help. We are delighted to have you on board. And then we also have a UX researcher. So she has been poking BlueJeans, looking at it and saying, no, that's terrible. No, she hasn't been. She's been utterly amazing. But she's been assessing what we want to do with InterMine and what might be useful. So if you are interested in being a guinea pig to test some of her prototypes, or if you know someone who might be, I think Jacqueline's already left, but I will ask her for certain. Please do let us know. So she's writing up the scripts for user testing at the minute on these prototypes, which are based off BlueJeans. But I think that means we hope within the next week or two, she'll actually start inviting people and scheduling for them to do some prototype testing. So this wouldn't be actual real physical tests. It would be based on the prototype so that we can turn over the prototypes quite quickly, and if things don't work, she can create another prototype and move on. But that should be very exciting. We want BlueJeans to be as smooth as possible. I think that's the majority of the projects that we'll be working on. Yeah, so just ping me if you're interested in being involved as one of our testers. Oh yeah, and we are also applying for the Google Season of Docs. So that would just mean people at the minute are able to apply to us. And the two projects that we're hoping they might work on is to improve the InterMine user docs. So that would potentially be something like making videos for BlueJeans. Hopefully the timing will work out such that the UX testing will be done and implemented before we make those videos so that the videos don't expire straight away as we update BlueJeans. And the other project would be to look at and potentially update the InterMine developer docs to make sure that they run smoothly and that they're all organized and sensible, and to identify gaps that may exist. So, Andrew.
Yeah, actually something you said reminded me. When you were looking at the GIS thing, you had commented on our touring facility. You know, one thing I like about the user tours is that things break when they're about to, when they get out of sync. It's not like you just have stale documentation. You can see, oh, I need to change the tour. And that's a blessing and a curse, I guess. But we had done our initial work using a library called Bootstrap Tours, primarily because it supported kind of multi-page tours that allowed us to do use cases through the site rather than just kind of show off a page. That it turns out that library isn't very well supported anymore. So Sven worked on something for our Shiny-based tool that we had using an R flavor of something called Intro.js, and we're going to be trying that out as a replacement for the original Bootstrap tours. So if that's something you guys are interested in exploring further, we're happy to work with you on that.
Stop talking before I was quite done typing.
Oh,
I used my orange marker pen, meaning to highlight it. So.
Right, okay, Goss likes tours. Right, okay, yeah, I've made a note. I suspect Season of Docs is a little unlike Summer of Code insofar as people don't have to be coders. That doesn't invalidate the fact that I loved that tour to pieces when I looked at it, and we've now got the orange marker as well, so we should probably keep that on the idea for potential intern projects in future years if we don't get to it sooner. Okay, it is nearly time to wrap up, but thankfully we're nearly done. So I just wanted to mention we will be at BCC 2020. That is BOSC, Bioinformatics, Open Source Conference and Galaxy Conference together. It is based on the East Coast American time zones and or Australia time zones, so it'll be running twice. which means that you don't have to get up early or late for almost anything, or you have to get up early and late for everything, depending on how it goes. But registration is super cheap right now because it's virtual, and basically they just have to defray the costs of having arranged it face-to-face, first of all. We will be offering API training for InterMine, probably covering the Python libraries and potentially a little bit of R, as well as UI interface intro. That's over a 2.5-hour session. But if you know anyone that you would like to encourage to learn any of these or to help out, then, so if someone's helping out, we can probably help cover the costs for that, for their registration for the whole conference. But otherwise, tell people to come along and we can help train them. We are waiting to hear whether or not we got a talk as well, but we haven't heard. I think that'll be within the next week or two. I think that's everything I have, except to note next calls. So I think our next call, this style call, will be September 3rd. And there will be another call in the middle in the meantime, because we'll have the final presentations for our interns at some point. We haven't set the date for that. It will be earlier in the day. I apologize to those of you who are on the west coast of the United States, but basically our intern time zones at the minute span from John, who is in the East Coast, to Singapore, and they are 12 hours separate. And so if we asked our Singapore interns to be up right now, it would be really, really late. And I don't think it's fair to ask them to present their own presentations at 1 a.m. So it will probably be a bit earlier in the day, but we haven't confirmed the date for that. I think, yeah, I am done, and it is exactly on the hour, so I'm kind of impressed. Thank you, everyone. It's been lovely to speak to you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye, all.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, John.
Great meeting.
Thank you.